Ever wish your body came with, like, a user manual?
Oh, yeah.
Not like a boring clinical one, but something that made you go, whoa, I never knew that.
Right.
Well, that's kind of what we're going for in today's deep dive, exploring the amazing world of the female reproductive system.
It's true. This system, I think, is often surrounded by mystery or even misinformation.
Oh, yeah.
And, understanding how it works can be so empowering, whether you're curious about your own body, planning a family, or just want to be more health savvy.
Exactly. And to guide our deep dive today, we're turning to Empowering Women's Health, a comprehensive guide to understanding the female reproductive system.
Yes.
This resource, it's from the Health Knowledge Base,
Mm-hmm.
does such a fantastic job of breaking down these complex concepts into clear, engaging insights that anyone can understand.
Yeah, it's not just about the biology either. The guide really stresses that connection between knowledge and informed decision making,
Right?
which is so important, especially when it comes to reproductive health.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Big picture view. What are the key players in this intricate system?
Well, you can think of it as a network of interconnected organs, each with its own specific role. So we've got the ovaries, which produce the eggs, of course, and hormones. We've got the fallopian tubes, which act as pathways for those eggs. The uterus, which is where a fertilized egg would implant and grow. And then the cervix, which is that gateway between the uterus and the vagina. And then finally, the vagina itself, which serves as the birth canal and entry point during intercourse.
Wow. It's incredible how it all works together.
Yeah.
But the guide, it emphasizes that it's not just about anatomy, right? Understanding the cyclical nature of menstruation, changes throughout the cycle, and factors that can actually influence fertility, it's crucial for making informed decisions about your body.
Yeah, it's like having a roadmap for your body's natural rhythms.
Oh, I like that.
The more you understand those rhythms, the better you are to navigate your reproductive health.
So let's get into some of the details. Anatomy 101, but make it interesting. Starting with the external structures, we've got the vulva.
Yes. Now, the vulva, that's not just one thing. It's a collective term that refers to several different parts, including the mons pubis, the labia majora and minora, the clitoris, and the vaginal opening.
Oh, wow.
And each of those parts, they all have their specific functions, from protection to, as the guide points out, sexual pleasure.
Okay, and then internally, things get even more fascinating.
Yeah.
The guide highlights the amazing elasticity of the vagina, which we know is essential for childbirth. Then there's the cervix, which is constantly changing throughout the cycle.
Exactly. The cervix, it's like a gatekeeper, controlling access to the uterus. And then there's the uterus itself, which is capable of expanding to accommodate a growing fetus. Pretty remarkable.
And of course, we can't forget the ovaries, those tiny but mighty powerhouses.
Right.
More than just egg producers, they're hormone factories, pumping out estrogen and progesterone, which we know have wide-ranging effects on a woman's body.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, isn't it, how those hormones fluctuate throughout the menstrual cycle,
Right.
like orchestrating this complex symphony of changes within the reproductive system.
Speaking of the menstrual cycle, let's decode that a bit. The guide emphasizes that menstruation, it's not an inconvenience, it's a sign of a healthy reproductive system at work.
Right. It's all about the interplay of these hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Think of them as the lead dancers in this intricate ballet.
Okay, so break it down for us. What are the key phases of this hormonal ballet?
Okay, well, it starts with menstruation itself, which typically lasts, 3 to 7 days. And this is when the uterine lining is shed, resulting in bleeding. And the flow, of course, it varies from woman to woman, but it's important to remember that it's totally normal and healthy. Then we move into what's called the follicular phase.
Okay.
And during this phase, we have follicle-stimulating hormone.
FSH.
Yes, FSH. And that stimulates the growth of follicles in the ovaries. Each of those follicles contains an egg that matures during this time.
Then comes the main event, ovulation.
Exactly. That's when we see a surge in luteinizing hormone, or LH.
Right.
And that triggers the release of a mature egg from one of those follicles into the fallopian tube. So this is the time when a woman is most fertile. And there are often noticeable signs, like changes in cervical mucus, an increased libido, even a slight rise in basal body temperature.
And this is where tracking your cycle can be so powerful, right? As the guide highlights, understanding your own individual patterns, it can be a game changer for family planning, whether
Yeah.
you're trying to conceive or prevent pregnancy.
Absolutely. And, it goes beyond family planning, too. Tracking your cycle can actually help you identify any irregularities
Oh,
that might warrant a conversation with your healthcare provider. It's really about being in tune with your body
yeah.
and advocating for your own health.
Now let's talk about fertility and ovulation. The guide emphasizes that it's more than just timing, right? There are
Yeah.
so many factors involved, both internal and external.
Oh, yeah. Fertility is influenced by things like age, overall health, hormonal balance, and even lifestyle choices. It's complex. And everyone's journey is different.
And this is where things get really personal. The guide stresses the importance of understanding your ovulation signs, whether it's changes in that cervical mucus we talked about, libido, pelvic sensations, or those temperature shifts. And this knowledge can be empowering, both for achieving and avoiding pregnancy.
Right. It's about taking control of your reproductive journey, whatever that looks like for you. And it's a team effort, too, by the way. Sperm quality, fallopian tube health, the uterine environment all play crucial roles.
So it's not just about the woman's body, but also her partner's health and the overall compatibility of their reproductive systems.
Exactly. And this actually raises an important question. Are we educating both men and women about these
It's a
factors?
really good point.
Fertility, it's not just a woman's responsibility. It's a shared journey that requires understanding and communication from both partners.
Now, the guide also touches on some of the common issues women might face when it comes to their reproductive health.
Right. And it's important to remember that these issues, they're more common than we think.
Okay.
And knowledge is power
Yeah.
in these situations. The sooner you can recognize potential issues, the sooner you can seek treatment and support.
So what are some of the things that the guide highlights?
Well, they mention menstrual disorders like menorrhagia, which is excessive bleeding,
Hmm.
amenorrhea, the absence of periods,
Mhm.
and dysmenorrhea, which is painful periods. There's also polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, which is a hormonal imbalance that can lead to those irregular periods, excess hair growth, and fertility challenges.
And they touch on endometriosis as well,
Yes.
which is when that uterine tissue grows outside the uterus,
Right.
causing pain and potential infertility.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, those fibroids,
Yeah.
the non-cancerous growths.
In or around the uterus.
And they cover pelvic inflammatory disease, or PID, an infection often linked to sexually transmitted infections. And, of course, urinary tract infections, UTIs, more common in women.
Right.
And the guide emphasizes that sexual health is a vital part of overall well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Safe sex practices and addressing any sexual dysfunction concerns are crucial. Plus, there's the topic of reproductive cancers, which often require regular screenings for early detection.
It can feel overwhelming,
Yeah,
but the main takeaway really is that being informed is your best defense.
that's true.
Regular checkups, open communication with your healthcare provider, and, a proactive approach to your health are essential.
And that brings us to the final section of the guide, promoting reproductive health holistically.
Yeah.
And this isn't just about medical care.
Exactly. It's about education, it's about access to resources, and creating a supportive environment where women feel empowered to make choices about their bodies. And this is where things get really interesting because it's about moving beyond the individual and looking at the bigger picture.
So we've gone pretty deep on the biology, from the anatomy to the hormonal cycles.
Yeah.
What strikes you as like the most important takeaway for our listener?
What fascinates me is just how interconnected everything is. The hormones, the cycles, the impact of lifestyle. Like, it's this beautifully complex web.
Yeah.
And I think the guide is giving our listener the tools to really understand that web, which is incredibly empowering.
It's like having that user manual we talked about
Exactly.
for your own body.
Yes. It allows you to see the patterns, recognize the signs, make informed choices about your health. And that knowledge can make a world of difference. The guide also really emphasizes breaking down taboos,
Right.
which is so important. I think for far too long, women's reproductive health has been shrouded in secrecy and shame.
It's time to change that narrative. Menstruation, fertility, menopause, these are all natural processes.
Absolutely.
Not something to be whispered about or hidden away.
We need to create spaces where women feel comfortable asking questions, sharing their experiences, and seeking support without judgment. And that starts with comprehensive sex education, education that goes beyond just the basics.
The guide makes a strong case for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about preventing pregnancy and STIs. It's about fostering a positive and informed relationship with your own body.
And equipping young people with the knowledge and skills they need to navigate relationships responsibly and make healthy choices.
Okay, let's turn to the FAQ section of the guide now. It addresses some of the most common questions that women might have. What stood out to you?
Well, one that caught my eye was about determining your fertile days for family planning.
Okay.
And the guide, emphasizes that tracking those ovulation signs can be incredibly helpful for both trying to conceive and preventing pregnancy. It's like having a natural rhythm method at your fingertips.
Right. By paying attention to those changes in the cervical mucus, their basal body temperature, other signs, women can gain valuable insights into their own cycles.
Yeah, and another question that resonated with me was about managing menstrual cramps. The guide offers these really practical tips that can make a big difference, like over-the-counter pain relief, heat therapy, relaxation techniques, even regular exercise.
And of course, if the pain is severe or persistent, it's essential to consult with a healthcare professional. Speaking of which, the guide also addresses how reproductive health issues can affect fertility. Conditions like PCOS, endometriosis, pelvic inflammatory disease are mentioned as potential factors.
Yeah, but they also stress that seeking medical help can make a big difference in managing these conditions and improving outcomes. Early detection and treatment are key.
The FAQ about the role of comprehensive sex education in empowering women is also crucial. It highlights the connection between knowledge and agency.
Absolutely. When women have accurate information about their bodies, their rights, and their options, they can make informed choices that align with their values and goals. That's what empowerment is all about.
And the guide provides some really helpful resources for further learning as well. They recommend consulting with healthcare providers, exploring educational websites, and seeking out reputable organizations focused on women's health.
Right. It's about recognizing that there's a wealth of information out there, but it's important to be discerning,
Yeah.
seek out credible sources, and never be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
Asking questions is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows that you're engaged in your own health and willing to advocate for yourself.
So we've covered the main points, delved into the FAQs. What's the overall message you think our listeners should take away from this deep dive so far?
If I had to distill it, I'd say knowledge is power. The more you understand about your own body, the better equipped you are to make informed choices, advocate for your health, and just live a full and empowered life.
I love that. Knowledge is power. It's such a simple message, but so profound. And it applies to every aspect of our lives, but especially our health.
And it's never too late to start learning, whether you're in your teens, your 20s, your 40s, or beyond. There's always something new to discover about your body and how to take care of it.
That's what makes this journey so exciting. But we've focused a lot on the biological aspects today. What about the social and cultural context? How do things like societal norms, access to resources, even media portrayals impact women's experiences and choices when it comes to reproductive health?
That's a great question. And it's one that deserves its own deep dive, I think. We've laid the groundwork with the biology,
Yeah.
but now we need to zoom out and consider those broader influences. It's like we've been studying the individual instruments of an orchestra, but now it's time to appreciate the whole symphony.
Yeah, it's like we've explored the inner workings of a higher performance machine, but now we need to consider like the environment it operates in.
Exactly.
The roads it travels on, the fuel it's given, even the driver's skill.
We need to consider how factors like cultural norms, socioeconomic disparities, and access to healthcare can all influence a woman's reproductive health outcomes.
For instance, how do taboos surrounding menstruation, impact girls' education in certain parts of the world? Or how do those societal expectations about motherhood influence a woman's reproductive choices?
These are such crucial questions, and they highlight the need for a more holistic approach to women's health. It's not just about biology. It's about understanding those social and cultural forces that shape our experiences.
And recognizing that those forces can create, inequalities,
Absolutely.
barriers for some women.
For example, lack of access to quality health care, comprehensive sex education, affordable contraception. Those things can disproportionately impact marginalized communities.
This reminds me of something the guide touched on, the importance of empowering decision-making and supporting women's autonomy in their reproductive choices.
That's a fundamental principle of reproductive justice. Women should have the right to make informed decisions about their bodies and their reproductive futures, free from coercion, free from judgment.
And that includes the right to choose parenthood, to prevent pregnancy, or to terminate a pregnancy safely and legally.
Exactly. Reproductive rights are human rights, and they're essential for women's overall well-being and equality.
So where do we go from here? How do we move beyond simply understanding the biology to actually addressing these broader social and cultural issues?
Well, I think it starts with awareness. We need to shed light on those systemic barriers that prevent women from accessing the care and resources they need.
And challenge those harmful stereotypes and misconceptions that perpetuate the stigma and shame around women's bodies and reproductive health.
Absolutely. It's about creating a culture of respect,
Hmm.
inclusivity, and support for all women, regardless of their background or choices.
We also need to advocate for policies that promote reproductive justice. Things like ensuring access to quality health care, comprehensive sex education, affordable contraception.
Right. And don't forget the importance of investing in research and innovation to address women's specific health needs throughout their lives.
It's about recognizing that women's health is not just a women's issue, it's a societal issue.
Exactly. When women thrive, communities thrive.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of awe, really, for the incredible complexity of the female reproductive system and a renewed commitment to advocating for women's health and empowerment.
It's been an amazing journey, and I hope our listener feels inspired to continue exploring this topic and engaging in conversations that challenge the status quo.
Remember, knowledge is power, and your voice matters. Speak up, ask questions, and never stop fighting for your right to make informed choices about your body and your health.
To a future where all women have the resources and support they need to live healthy, fulfilling lives.
That's a future worth fighting for. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.